You've spent years working towards the life you've always dreamed of. A loving partner, a family that feels like home, a future that looks brighter than anything you've ever known. You're at the top of your game, your heart fully invested in the woman who makes every day worth living. Marie. Marie. She's not just the kind of woman you read about in fairy tales or see in movies. She's real. She's strong, beautiful, intelligent, and the kind of person who makes you feel like you can do anything. When I met her, I thought, this is it. I've found the one I've been waiting for. We built something together that felt like a fortress. But here's where it gets hard to admit. Life doesn't always go the way we plan, and one bad decision, just one, could bring everything you've worked for crashing down. That's what happened to me. It wasn't a mistake that happened overnight. It started small, so small I barely noticed it myself at first. I thought I was in control. I thought I could manage it. But it's funny, isn't it, how something so small can grow into something that completely alters the course of your life? You see, my ex-wife, Beth, came back into the picture. I know she shouldn't have, but there she was, reaching out, asking for something as casual as grabbing a beer. She knew how to make it sound innocent, just old friends catching up, right? But I knew better. I should have ignored it. I should have told her no. But I didn't. And that one small decision, that one moment of weakness, started the unraveling of everything I held dear. You see, I loved Marie with my whole being. I had promised her a future, a life together. And I couldn't understand it at the time, but every time I let Beth into my life again, every time I entertained her attention, I was betraying Marie. I was breaking something sacred between us, and in doing so, I nearly lost her forever. I can still feel the weight of it now, the guilt, the confusion, the anger I felt towards myself, and more than anything, the fear. The fear that I had already lost Marie, that I had destroyed everything we had worked so hard for. Stay with me as I tell you the story of how my mistakes with Beth, my inability to let go of the past, nearly destroyed the future I had with Marie. It's a story I wish I could take back, but one I've learned so much from. Before we dive deeper into this story today, titled A Heart I Almost Broke, How My Mistakes with Beth Nearly Destroyed What I Had with Marie, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying this journey, and give this video thumbs up. Your support energized us for sharing these intimate stories, and remember to turn on notifications so you won't miss any future episodes. I want you to picture this for a second. You're 33 years old, you've worked your ass off to get to this point in your life, and you think you have everything you need. Then she comes along. Marie. She's beautiful, strong, compassionate, and somehow she makes you feel like you can breathe again. Like, for the first time in years, you've finally found your place in the world. She's the kind of woman who feels like home, even on the hardest days. I was crazy about her. I knew I didn't deserve someone like her, but there I was, falling for her with every part of me. She made everything better. The good days were brighter, and the bad days weren't so bad when I was with her. We had everything I'd ever dreamed of. Our kids, our life. The kind of future I'd never thought I'd get to have. But here's the thing no one ever tells you. Sometimes the past doesn't just stay there. It doesn't stay in its place, locked up behind you, forgotten. No, the past has a way of sneaking up on you when you least expect it. And when it does, it's not always easy to tell whether it's the thing that's going to break you or the thing you're still not ready to let go of. For me, it was Beth. I never wanted to think about her again. I thought I was done with her. Our history was messy, to say the least. We had our moments, our fights, and our broken promises. We were married for a while, and during that time, we made a lot of mistakes together. But the betrayal, the lies, it was too much. She broke me, and I thought I was done with her, just like she was done with me. And then, out of nowhere, she reached out. It didn't make any sense. I hadn't heard from her in ages, and I never expected I would again, but there it was, a message on my phone, as if nothing had happened between us. Just one simple sentence. "Hey, do you want to grab a beer sometime? Catch up." I could feel my stomach drop as soon as I saw it. That moment when you realize your past is knocking at your door, asking to come back in. It hit me harder than I care to admit, but here's where I got it wrong. At first, I convinced myself it was innocent. She just wants to talk, it's nothing, right? That's what I told myself. I tried to push away the nagging feeling in the back of my mind. I wasn't thinking about Marie when I saw that message. I wasn't thinking about the future I'd built. All I could think about was the past, the times when Beth and I were happy, or at least when I thought we were happy. But those memories weren't real anymore. They weren't who I was now. I looked at the message again. Just a beer, no big deal. I told myself I could handle it. I told myself I was stronger than the mistakes I made before, that I had learned my lesson. But it's funny how easy it is to tell yourself something you want to believe, even if it's not true. The next few days were a blur. I could feel the tension in my chest, and every time I saw my phone, I saw Beth's name. It was like she had planted herself back in my life, and no matter how hard I tried to focus on Marie, I couldn't get rid of the nagging thought, what if? What if this time we could just have a normal conversation? What if this was just closure? I tried to convince myself it would be fine. I'd go, have a drink, and walk away like nothing ever happened. No harm done, right? But the truth is, I was wrong. I knew that deep down. Every time I thought about Marie and how much she meant to me, I felt a pang of guilt. But then Beth would reach out again, and I'd feel that tug like a door was opening, just a crack, into a part of my past I wasn't sure I was ready to close forever. In the back of my mind, I kept telling myself, this is fine. This is just a beer. It's nothing. I can handle it. But I couldn't. I didn't know it yet, but that one simple message from Beth was about to send me down a road I couldn't control. It wasn't just a beer. It was the doorway to everything I thought I had left behind. And every second I spent thinking about it, I was inching closer to making a choice I would regret for the rest of my life. Click subscribe and remember to turn on notifications so you won't miss any future episodes. It wasn't just an innocent message anymore. At first, I thought I could handle it. I convinced myself that meeting up with Beth would be nothing more than a quick drink to catch up, two old friends reconnecting, nothing more. But with every text, every meetup, every time I heard her voice again, I felt that pull from the past. It was almost like I was slipping back into a version of myself I thought I had left behind. Beth knew me in ways no one else did, and part of me missed that, missed her. Marie, on the other hand, was the light. She was everything I had longed for. I loved her with everything I had. There was no question in my mind about that. And yet, here I was, torn between two worlds, between two women, one who represented a broken past, and one who was my future. Beth knew how to draw me in. It wasn't like she was doing anything overtly manipulative, but she knew how to speak to the parts of me that still remembered her, still held on to the fragments of our life together. She had always been the one who could make me feel understood in a way no one else could. The truth was, the connection we had was undeniable. But I also knew what I was doing wasn't right. Marie didn't deserve this. She didn't deserve to be lied to. She didn't deserve to be lied to. She didn't deserve to feel the distance that I was creating between us. Yet, somehow, every time I told myself I would stop seeing Beth, yet every time I thought I could end it and fully commit to Marie, I found myself reaching for my phone. It was like I couldn't stop. The temptation was right there, within arm's reach, just a text message away. And when you're faced with temptation, when it's staring you down, it's hard to stay strong, isn't it? I tried to convince myself it was just one more time, one more meeting, one more conversation to close the door for good. I told myself that, and it almost made sense. But deep down, I knew it was a lie. It wasn't just one more time. It was a slow unraveling of everything I had with Marie. I started lying. Not big lies. Nothing that would make Marie question me immediately. Just small ones at first. I'm meeting some friends. I'm out with a colleague. I need to clear my head for a bit. They were harmless, I told myself. Just a few hours out of the house, a quick drink, and then I would go back to Marie. Back to our family. But with each lie, with each excuse I made to get away, I could feel the weight growing heavier on my chest. I didn't feel like myself anymore. I felt like a stranger, someone I didn't recognize. The worst part? I could see it in Marie's eyes. She didn't say anything at first, but I could feel the change, the distance, the subtle hesitation. She knew something wasn't right. Maybe it was the way I seemed distracted, or how I couldn't quite look her in the eyes when we spoke. Maybe it was the times I would pull away when she tried to get closer. I couldn't even explain it to myself. I could explain it to her. Every time I came back from a night with Beth, I felt the guilt eat at me, gnawing away at my insides. Marie deserved better. She deserved all of me. Not the broken version of myself that I had allowed to creep back in. She didn't deserve to be second place to someone who had hurt me, someone who was a part of a past that had no place in my future. But what if I could have both? What if I could salvage this connection with Beth, fix whatever was broken between us, while still keeping what I had with Marie? Was that even possible? The more I thought about it, the more the lines between right and wrong started to blur. I wanted to believe it was just a small mistake, that I wasn't doing anything that would destroy what I had with Marie. But deep down, I knew better. I knew I was walking a line that would eventually break me. Every time I stood with Marie, every time we laughed or shared a quiet moment together, I felt like a fraud. I felt like I was wearing a mask, pretending to be the man she loved, when I wasn't even sure who I was anymore. I had already betrayed her. In my heart, by even considering reaching out to Beth. Now, I was betraying her with my actions, with my lies. The worst part? I wasn't sure how much longer I could keep it together, how much longer I could pretend to be the person Marie thought I was when I was already becoming someone else. Click subscribe and remember to turn on notifications so you won't miss any future episodes. As I sit here, reflecting on what happened, I realize I wasn't the only one going through this. I wasn't the only one to have made these mistakes, to have let something so small, so seemingly harmless, become the thing that tore apart everything I'd worked so hard to build. And the worst part, I didn't even realize it was happening at the time. I didn't see how slowly and quietly the trust I had with Marie was slipping away bit by bit. Each time I met with Beth, each time I told myself it was harmless, the foundation of my relationship with Marie was eroding without me noticing. The love I had for her, the future I had promised her, was being tested, and I didn't even know how to stop it. You see, I wasn't alone in this. I wasn't the first person to get caught up in the mess of emotional cheating. Experts say that infidelity doesn't always involve physical betrayal. No, emotional cheating, like what I was doing with Beth, can be just as damaging, and maybe, in some ways, even more destructive. What I didn't realize then was that emotional infidelity doesn't just hurt the person being cheated on, it chips away at the person doing the cheating, too. I remember talking to a therapist about it once. After everything started to unravel, I was ashamed to be there. I didn't want to admit what I had done. It felt like an overwhelming weight to carry, knowing that I had betrayed Marie in ways that went far beyond the physical. I wasn't just lying to her, I was emotionally detached. I had stopped being present, emotionally available. The therapist said something that hit me hard. He told me, emotional cheating often stems from unmet emotional needs. People seek out connections outside their relationship when they feel emotionally neglected or unfulfilled. I tried to understand it. In some twisted way, it almost made sense. But here's the thing. The problem wasn't that Marie wasn't meeting my needs. The problem was that I didn't know how to communicate my needs. I didn't want to face the discomfort of vulnerability. I didn't want to have the hard conversations with Marie. The conversations that would have brought us closer but also forced me to confront my own fears and insecurities. Instead, I avoided it. I kept telling myself it was easier this way, that seeing Beth, just catching up with her, just talking to her, wasn't a big deal. It was my escape. I didn't have to face the difficult things in my life, the things that were pushing me into a corner. I didn't have to confront the uncomfortable truths in my relationship with Marie. Instead, I sought out an old comfort, a piece of the past that I thought would fix the emptiness I felt. In reality, though, I wasn't fixing anything. I was making things worse. Psychologists say emotional cheating can sometimes be a form of avoidance. People use it as a distraction from the emotional pain or dissatisfaction they're feeling. And that's exactly what I was doing. I was avoiding the vulnerability that comes with love. I wasn't facing the deep, messy, beautiful parts of a relationship with Marie. Instead, I was running toward something familiar, something that didn't require me to be vulnerable. It's easy to point fingers and say, I was just seeking emotional comfort. But when I look back, I see it for what it was, avoidance. I wasn't showing up for Marie the way I should have been. I wasn't giving her the honesty and emotional openness she deserved. But here's the thing, I wasn't beyond redemption. I wasn't beyond fixing this. I had to learn the hard way that this wasn't something that would just disappear on its own. Trust doesn't rebuild itself overnight, and it doesn't rebuild with empty promises or secret meetings. It takes work. It takes confronting the truth. And most of all, it takes real vulnerability. It wasn't too late for me to change. I had to face my own mistakes first. The ones I'd made with Beth, the ones I'd made with Marie. I had to rebuild my relationship with myself before I could rebuild my relationship with her. It wasn't an easy realization, but it was a necessary one. Dr. Laura Berman, a licensed therapist and relationship expert, once said, Emotional cheating is often a symptom of deeper emotional issues in the relationship. It's not always about wanting to be with someone else. It's about not feeling seen or heard in the current relationship. What Dr. Berman said really resonated with me. I wasn't trying to replace Marie. I was trying to fill a hole that had been created by my own emotional distance. I didn't realize it at the time, but seeking out Beth wasn't about her. It was about me, about my inability to communicate with Marie and deal with my own feelings of inadequacy. As I reflect on this, I'm filled with regret. I wish I had been able to step back and see things more clearly, to understand what I was doing to both myself and Marie. But I didn't. I was too lost in the moment, too caught up in the comfort of my past. It's painful to admit, but I see now how much damage I caused, how much damage I was willing to ignore, all for a fleeting moment of emotional relief. But it's not too late to change. It's not too late to rebuild the trust I shattered. And I know, as difficult as it is, that I can take the necessary steps to make things right with Marie. Click subscribe and remember to turn on notifications so you won't miss any future episodes. When Marie found out, it was like the ground beneath my feet cracked wide open. I had been so careful to keep the truth from her, so skilled at maintaining the illusion of everything being fine, when, in reality, it was crumbling. The day the truth came out, I saw it in her eyes, an emptiness that took my breath away. The woman who had stood by me through thick and thin, who had believed in me, now looked at me like I was a stranger. She deserved the truth. I knew that. All the love we had built together, all the dreams we'd shared, suddenly felt fragile. I had broken it with my own hands, and as much as I wanted to reach out and make it right, I had no idea where to even start. The words I had spoken to her, the promises I'd made, they were meaningless now. They didn't matter. All that was left was the cold reality of what I had done. I remember that night vividly. Marie sat there, silent, tears running down her face, unable to speak. I couldn't find the words to fix it, to explain what had happened, to justify what I had done, because there was no justification. Nothing I could say would take away the pain I had caused her. The silence between us was suffocating. It felt like we were both drowning, stuck in a moment that couldn't be undone. I wanted to fix it. I wanted to make things right, to show her that I wasn't the man who had betrayed her, but I knew deep down that it wasn't going to be that easy. What followed wasn't a quick fix. It wasn't as simple as saying, "I'm sorry," and hoping it would be enough. No, this was going to take time, lots of time. In the weeks that followed, I felt like I was walking through a fog, unsure of where I was headed. We went to therapy together, trying to untangle the mess I had made. I sat in those sessions, heart heavy with guilt, listening to Marie's pain, hearing how my actions had torn apart the trust she had in me. She wanted to walk away, and I couldn't blame her. I would have too, in her shoes. But Marie wasn't ready to give up on us yet. She told me that, despite everything, she still saw something in me worth saving, and that was the hardest thing to hear, because I didn't know if I was worth saving. I had hurt her so deeply, betrayed her in a way that could never be undone. How could I possibly earn back her trust? Therapy became a place where we tried to understand what had happened, why I had turned to Beth, why I had let myself get lost in that emotional connection. The therapist didn't sugarcoat anything. He made me face the ugly truth of my actions, the parts of myself I didn't want to confront. He said, "John, you can't rebuild your relationship with Marie until you rebuild your relationship with yourself." And that's when I realized something. Before I could even think about earning Marie's trust again, I had to learn how to trust myself. I didn't know where to begin. Every night I would lie awake, my mind replaying everything I had done over and over again. The guilt consumed me. I felt unworthy of Marie's forgiveness. But slowly, through therapy and self-reflection, I began to understand something crucial. Healing didn't happen all at once. It wasn't a straight line. It was messy, it was painful, and most of all, it was slow. Marie was hesitant at first. Who could blame her? She had been betrayed. She was scared. She didn't know if she could ever trust me again, and I didn't know if I deserved that trust. But she wanted to try. She wanted to see if we could rebuild, if we could somehow find a way back to each other. It wasn't easy. There were nights when she would pull away, days when I'd feel like she was slipping further from me. But in those moments, I had to remind myself, this was not going to be quick. Trust doesn't come back overnight. It takes time, patience, and most importantly, action. I stopped running from my emotions. I stopped avoiding the difficult conversations. Slowly, I started being honest with Marie, truly honest. I let her in on my fears, my regrets, and my shame. It wasn't easy to admit the depth of my mistakes, but it was necessary. The more I opened up, the more Marie started to trust me again. The walls between us began to crack, and in those cracks, something beautiful started to grow. Our connection, our bond, began to return. We learned to listen, to really listen to each other. We talked about everything, our hopes, our fears, the things we had never said to each other. And yes, it hurt sometimes. The truth is painful. But through that pain, we found a way forward. We found a way to rebuild. Marie's forgiveness didn't come easily, and I didn't expect it to. It took time, it took effort, and it took vulnerability on both of our parts. But as we continued to work through it, as we began to heal together, I realized something profound. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about understanding. It's about growth. There were moments when I thought we wouldn't make it, when the weight of what I had done felt too heavy to bear. But Marie didn't give up on me, and that's when I realized that what we had, is worth fighting for. It's worth every ounce of effort to rebuild, to restore, to become whole again. It wasn't easy, it never is, but the hardest part for me wasn't fixing what I had broken with Marie. It was learning to forgive myself. That's something I'm still working on, but I know now more than ever that the journey is worth it. Love is worth it. And even when we make mistakes, even when we falter, there is always a way back. If we're willing to face the truth, to do the work, and to show up for each other no matter how hard it gets. Click subscribe and remember to turn on notifications so you won't miss any future episodes. So, what can we learn from this? After everything I've been through, I can't help but think about the lessons I've learned, not just for myself, but for anyone who's been in a relationship where trust was broken. It doesn't matter if it's emotional betrayal or physical, the pain feels the same. That feeling of being betrayed by someone you loved, someone you trusted with your heart, can tear you apart. But here's the thing I've come to realize. Healing is possible. It's not an easy road, and it's not going to be quick, but it's there, if you're willing to take the steps toward it. What we often forget when we're in the middle of a crisis is that we don't need to fix everything all at once. We want everything to be better now. We want the hurt to go away in an instant, to make everything right immediately. But that's not how this works. It's about taking it one day at a time, one step forward after the other. It's about being patient, not just with the other person, but with yourself. Healing isn't linear. There are days when everything seems okay, and then there are days when you feel like you're back at square one, and that's okay. The key is not to give up, not to let those bad days define your entire journey. One of the biggest lessons I learned was the importance of vulnerability. If you're going to rebuild trust, you have to be willing to be vulnerable. You have to be willing to face the parts of yourself that you've been hiding, to open up in ways that scare you. And for me, that meant confronting the shame I carried. It wasn't easy. There were times when I wanted to shut down, to avoid facing the mess I had made. But the truth is, you can't rebuild something that's broken without confronting the damage first. Honesty was another game changer. I had to learn to be honest in ways I had never been before. Not just with Marie, but with myself. I had to stop lying to protect myself and face the reality of my actions. And that's when things started to shift. Being honest isn't always pretty. It's painful, it's raw, but it's the only way forward. When Marie and I started really talking, really listening to each other, that's when we began to heal. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't easy, but it was real. And that's the thing I want to leave you with. Don't let your mistakes define you. Don't let them be the end of your story. We all mess up. We all make decisions we regret, and we all hurt the people we love. But that doesn't mean it's over. It doesn't mean there isn't a chance for redemption, for healing, for growth. Yes, it takes time. Yes, it takes effort. And yes, it's going to be hard. But if you're willing to show up, if you're willing to be vulnerable, to be honest, and to work through the pain, trust can be rebuilt. If you found yourself in a similar situation, whether you've been the one who betrayed or the one who was betrayed, I want to hear from you. I know I'm not alone in this. So what did you do to rebuild? How did you get through the tough days? What's your journey been like? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Let's keep this conversation going. Because healing doesn't happen in isolation. It happens together. And we can all learn from each other. Click subscribe and remember to turn on notifications so you won't miss any future episodes. If this video helped you in any way, if you've ever felt like you were on the edge of losing something or someone you loved, I want you to know one thing. You're not alone. It might feel like you're facing a mountain that's too steep to climb, like you've made a mistake so big that it can never be undone. I've been there. I've felt that crushing weight of guilt and fear, wondering if I could ever fix what I had broken. But I want to tell you this. This journey is difficult. It's messy. It's full of pain and uncertainty, but it's worth it. Every step forward, no matter how small, is a step toward healing, and if you keep going, if you keep fighting for what matters, things can get better. The road ahead might not be clear. You may still have doubts. You may still struggle with the thought of whether you can truly rebuild trust or whether the wounds will ever fully heal. And honestly, that's okay. Sometimes healing takes time, more time than we expect, but I promise you, it is possible. I know this because I've lived it, and I'm still living it. I'll be sharing more stories like this in the future, stories that dig deeper into the complexities of trust, how to rebuild it, how to face your demons, and how personal growth can come from even the most painful experiences. These stories aren't easy to share, but I believe they can make a difference. I believe they can help others who are walking the same tough path, who need to hear that they're not alone, that it's okay to stumble, and that healing is a real possibility. If you found something in this video that resonated with you, If it gave you even a little bit of hope or comfort, I encourage you to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. I'll continue to share my journey, the lessons I've learned, and the stories of others who've faced similar struggles. We're all in this together. So, thank you for being a part of this with me, and remember, it's never too late to heal. There is always a chance for new beginnings, for second chances, for rebuilding what was broken. No matter where you are right now, no matter how lost or hopeless you may feel at times, you have the power to change. And so do I. And together, we can make it through.